Hello and welcome back. Today we're seeing if this Fujimi Mercedes AMG C-Class DTM compares well at all to the Tamiya version. As you can see, this is the D2 liveried version. I'll be making the version used in the 1996 DTM. So the most important thing to do is to remove any mould seams. There are quite a few. I also don't like this moulded exhaust in the back, so I've used some Mr. White Putty R to cover that. Here I'm using some UMP sanding sticks to remove the mould seams, and also making sure that any panel lines are deep enough after having sanded those seams down. I let the putty cure for about a day before sanding it flat. And again, using a cocktail stick to remove excess from the seams. And I'm going to be using a decal Mercedes badge at the back, so I'm removing the moulded one. Here I'm starting with some Halford's white primer to do the bodywork. Needs to be pretty consistent to cover up all of the black plastic, and it will help you notice how well you've got on with the sanding. It was then given 4 coats of TS26 pure white from Tamiya, and you can also see the 3D printed BBS wheels. That was then time to do the suspension. It's all very simple and not particularly realistic, as this kit used to be a motorised version. The disc brakes are quite good and even have some moulded Brembo logos, although I'm pretty certain that this car didn't have Brembo brakes. I've done these in silver and then added some red gloss to do the calipers. The undercarriage detail is very poor, so I won't show you the painting of it. Then you clip all of this together to control the steering, though I also found that you could turn the steering upside down like this to raise the ride height a little bit, something I needed to do later to fit the larger tyres. Now the seats are very poor and have lots of flash around the top. They're also not racing seats. So I looked into the spare box and found a spare sort of Recaro style seat, which I did in matte black and semi-gloss on the back. I wasn't going to waste my time doing proper seat belts on this cheap kit, so I just found some spare decal seat belts. These are red Sabelt ones in the spares box, and applied those using some microset and sole. Cut the top of these diagonally to match up with the holes in the seat. There we are, that looks better than the stock seats. Then you've got this interior section here. It's a little bit weird because it looks like some of these are spare parts for the car. Not really sure what they're supposed to be, but I painted them what I thought were appropriate colours, with most of the interior being done in matte or semi-gloss black. Now the joints for these parts are very poor, if anything at all, so I found that you had to hold them in place for quite a long time to make them glue securely. One feature that I did like is how you've got this glass section here on the dashboard, and then you can put the decal onto the back of that. So it looks more realistic how on a real car you've got the dials behind a little sort of clear screen. Looks alright. This one here is too big, so you may want to cut it before applying it. I just tried to adjust it to the right sort of position. So I'm recreating the number 3 car from 1996, specifically the one Juan Pablo Montoya drove at the Silverstone round. I printed these decals myself, resized them correctly by measuring out on the car body. This is with a transparent decal paper, which really suits the white livery. I printed them and then gave them 4 coats of clear gloss acrylic from Halfords, and these work pretty well. Usually put them in the water for about 5 seconds and then leave them for longer on the tissue, as if you leave them in the water for too long, the ink can run. The number 3 car was actually mainly driven by Jan Magnussen, father of Kevin, and also Ricardo Zonta for a few rounds in the 1996 season. I cut a small slit into the bottom of these Decra logos here to fit them around the vent which I had opened down here at the bottom. I'll talk to you more about that later. It's important to print out more than you need in case you make mistakes. There's Juan Pablo Montoya's name. There we are, I'm pretty happy with that. I think the decals look pretty good. Now the rear spoiler is fairly accurate. I chose to put it together before painting it. There should also be AMG decals on the end plate, but I couldn't print those because they would be white logos. Now for the tyres, which are slicks and pretty accurate, I decided to use these leftover Bridgestone decals that I had from a Fujimi Formula 1 kit. These Fujimi reverse decals are terrible because the sort of film that keeps them all together is incredibly thin. So I tried to leave them to soak for as long as possible, and also used some micro sol to help them settle. But as you can see here, the Own from Bridgestone did split, and I had to reposition it like so. Once in the right place though, I think they look okay. Now the interior on the real car is very, very different, and that's because this interior is a pretty standard one, which they also used in some of their other kits, including the Mercedes 109e and a BMW kit as well. I decided to add this stalk here to make the steering wheel look a bit more realistic. However, it did go a bit too far and sticks out a bit. I also used this gear stick. Both of these parts are from the Tamiya R33 Calersonic kit. And I had to remove a few parts to get the seat in the right position. That looks okay. As you can see here, the roll cage is incredibly simple. It's just 3 parts. I tried using some 2mm styrene rod to add some other parts to it, like so, and I was actually pretty pleased with how it looked. However, when I finally put it together, I found that the thickness of the glass was too much and it just didn't fit, so I had to remove it. The door cards join on really poorly and keep falling off, so you have to hold those in place. Now for the grille here, I wanted to use some aluminium tape to make it look really metallic. I used some detacked masking tape to kind of get the right shape by using a cotton bud to sort of mould it to the right dimensions. Aluminium tape is really useful for this kind of job, and it's very cheap. I used a nice fresh craft blade to cut those pieces out, starting with the thin horizontal and vertical strips over the middle. Then used a cotton bud to push those down into place. Good thing about using this is that I'm getting much sharper lines than I would have if I was painting it. It's not a perfect job, but I think it looks a lot better than it would do if it was just silver paint. I also used aluminium tape for the rear view mirror, which slots into the inside of the glass. As I said before, the glass is quite thick, but at least it does fit relatively simply. I used some foam safe superglue to get that into place, and then test fitted it with the body as so. I'd heard from some people that the chassis didn't fit into the body on this kit. I found that it went in okay, but unfortunately you can see some gaps around the front and the back. As you can see, I also added some window decals. Those were printed on white decal paper, and then I'm using a thin black Gundam marker to do the panel lines, including these vents on the front and back wheel arches. So now I'm reattaching it, having added the wheels. The wheels need to be super glued as they didn't quite fit the same way. This was a very difficult job and had to sort of be prised around the outside of the tyres. Here you can see how the front wheels don't fit with the suspension in the normal position, so that had to be changed later on. You can see here that doesn't look so good. Headlights and taillights are okay. I used some red Sharpie to colour those in, and some foam safe superglue to glue them into place without damaging the glass. You've got two styles of wing mirrors. These are the ones used in 1996, and they were sprayed in a sort of a fluorescent yellow. You need to drill a hole for the windscreen wiper in the middle. And then here I am using a little bit of superglue for the spoiler. The joins are very, very small, and I actually knocked this off twice, so be very careful with it if you're building it. Now, one feature I do like is it gives you two options of door handles. And they are separate parts, which means that they look a lot more realistic and easier to paint. It's a minor thing, but it does make a big difference. Now, I decided to add a diffuser as the 1996 car had one. This is a spare part from the R33 Calisonic Skyline kit. It was too wide, so I cut those edges off and then added some extra fins to the middle using some sheet styrene. Trimmed down these connecting poles and drilled some holes into the underside to secure it. You can see me measuring the places for the other fins on the underside of the diffuser, and then it's painted black and glued on like so. The Mercedes logo on the front is okay. This was done in Molotow Chrome. However, I did find that you needed to drill the hole in the bonnet much wider to fit it in. This would have been better done before paint, I think. Incidentally, the car had been given 3 coats of gloss clear from Halfords, and it was also polished using Kent Models Hyper Polish. So here we are at the end of the build. You can see the finished car here. Some positives about this kit, so you've got things like the door handles and the Mercedes logo at the front. Generally the exterior is quite accurate, it's got the correct spoiler. Downsides to the kit are the interior is incredibly inaccurate. It's the same as in BMW and another Mercedes kit. I'd say that if Fujimi completely replaced the interior, maybe this could be a half decent kit. So some changes that I made, so I drilled open this vent here at the front and then used a craft knife to cut it open. You can see it there on the other side as well. Changed the wheels to these 3D printed BBSs. Thank you to Ricky for printing those. I also had to reverse the suspension at the front here because the wheels just don't fit. They're too big. Even with the standard wheels, they don't fit in the front here. I also added a diffuser at the back, which was used in the 1996 season. I smoothed over the moulded exhaust pipe and drilled in these ones. Also added a tow hook there. Is this kit a worthy alternative to the Tamiya? Well, no. The answer is no. Tamiya will almost always be greater quality than Fujimi kits. However, the Tamiya C-Class is long out of print. If you really want a C-Class DTM car on your shelf, then yeah, this is an alternative. It will certainly be a lot cheaper. The end result will be a car that looks a lot cheaper as well. I found the Tamiya version on eBay for about £100. If you're desperate for this car, then yes, you could get this. I printed these decals myself. I scratch built a lot of the additionals. 3D printed wheels make a big difference as well. So all in all, Tamiya this ain't, but you could buy about 4 of these for that Tamiya kit, so value is 3 out of 5. Assembly is funny in places with no join points, so this is only a 2. The externals are okay, but the internals and mechanical detail is way off, so 2 out of 5 for accuracy. The car is built in a robust way, but the planning has a real sort of lack of thought, so 2 out of 5 for quality. This car was a 2-time DTM champion, so legacy gives it a 3 out of 5. That gives it a total of 12 out of 25, making this the lowest scoring kit I've ever built. Let me know what you think down below. Have you built one of these? Would you build one of these? Thanks a lot for watching. Leave a comment, hit the like, subscribe and hit the bell if you haven't done so already, and thank you very much. I'll see you next time.